Marcus Chen heard the noise in the hallway and looked up from his computer screen. He had been working on a translation project all morning, and his eyes were tired. The sound of heavy boxes and strange clicking voices made him curious. He walked to his door and opened it just a crack to see what was happening. A moving team of small robot helpers carried boxes into the apartment across the hall. But it was not the robots that caught his attention. Standing in the middle of the hallway was the tallest woman Marcus had ever seen. She was not human. Her skin was a beautiful silver blue color that seemed to shine under the hallway lights. She had 4 arms, each one thin and graceful, and she was directing the robots with quick hand movements. Her eyes were large and dark purple, and when she turned to look at Marcus, he felt his breath catch in his throat. She was Cathari. Marcus recognized her species from his work as a xenolinguistics translator. The Cathari were famous across the galaxy for their knowledge of chemistry and nutrition. They were also known for being very logical and not showing much emotion. The alien woman noticed Marcus watching and walked toward him with smooth steps. Her 4 arms folded neatly against her body as she approached. "You are the human resident of Unit 4B, she said in perfect English, though her voice had a musical quality that made each word sound like a small song. "I am Vela Sorrenti. I will be occupying the unit across from yours." Marcus smiled and stepped fully into the hallway. "Nice to meet you, Vela. I am Marcus Chen. Welcome to the building." Vela tilted her head to one side, like a bird examining something strange. "You offer welcome. Is this a required social ritual, or do you genuinely feel positive about my arrival?" Marcus laughed at her direct question. "A little bit of both, I guess. It is nice to have neighbors, and I have never met a Cathari before." "I see," Vela said, and Marcus noticed her making a small note on a device she pulled from her pocket with one of her lower arms. "I am here to conduct anthropological research on human domestic behaviors. I work for the Cultural Studies Department at the University of Cathar Prime." "So you are here to study humans?" Marcus asked with interest. "Correct. Your species has joined Galactic Society only recently, and there is much about human behavior that remains confusing to other species. I intend to observe and document." Marcus found her honesty refreshing, even if it was a bit strange to know he might become a research subject. "Well, if you ever need any help or have questions, my door is right there. I work from home most days." Vela made another note. "You offer assistance to a stranger. This is noted. Thank you, Marcus Chen." She turned and walked back to supervise the robots, and Marcus returns to his apartment with a smile on his face. His new neighbor was certainly interesting. The next day, Marcus woke up late and rushed to his computer to finish a translation deadline. He worked through the morning without eating breakfast, his stomach growling in protest. Around noon, he heard a soft knock at his door. When he opened it, Vela stood there, holding a container in 2 of her hands. Her expression was as neutral as before, but she extended the container toward him. "Nutritional sample number 1, she said. "Please consume and report your findings." Marcus looked at the container with surprise. "You made me food?" "I have prepared a meal designed to meet human nutritional requirements. I wish to study human responses to food prepared by non-human sources. Will you participate?" Marcus took the container and opened it. Inside was something that looked like a colorful stew with vegetables and some kind of protein he did not recognize. It smelled amazing, like a mix of spices he had never encountered before. "You want me to just eat this?" he asked. Vela blinked her large purple eyes. "That is the standard method of consuming food, yes." Marcus laughed and grabbed a fork from his kitchen. He took a bite right there in the doorway while Vela watched with intense focus. The flavor exploded on his tongue, rich and savory, with hints of sweetness that balanced perfectly. "This is incredible," Marcus said with his mouth still half full. "Vela, this is really good." Vela's head tilted again. "You consumed food given to you by a near stranger, without scanning it for toxins or asking about ingredients. Why?" Marcus shrugged. "It smelled good. And you seem trustworthy," Vela repeated, her voice rising with what might have been confusion. "We have spoken exactly once before this moment. How can you determine trustworthiness from a single interaction?" "I do not know," Marcus admitted. "Humans are pretty good at reading people, I guess. Or maybe we are just optimistic." Vela pulled out her device and began taking rapid notes. "Humans possess either extraordinary trust or extraordinary digestive fortitude. Possibly both. This requires further study." Marcus finished the meal and handed back the empty container. "Whatever the reason, I am happy to be your test subject if the food is always this good." "You would willingly participate in ongoing research?" Vela asked. "If it means free lunch from a master Kethari chef, absolutely." Vela stared at him for a long moment. Something in her expression shifted, though Marcus could not quite read what it meant. "Very well. I will prepare another sample tomorrow. Please be available at noon." "It is a date," Marcus said without thinking. Vela froze. "A date? I am unfamiliar with this term in the context you have used it." Marcus felt his face grow warm. "It is just an expression. It means I will be here." "I see," Vela said, making another note. "Human linguistic patterns include casual references to romantic customs in non-romantic contexts. Fascinating." She turned and walked back to her apartment, leaving Marcus standing in his doorway, feeling both amused and slightly embarrassed. He had not meant anything by the phrase, but now he wondered if he should be more careful with his words around his new neighbor. Still, as he closed his door and looked at the empty container, he could not help but smile. His life had been quiet and routine for a long time. Working from home meant he rarely met new people, and his social circle had grown small over the years. But now he had an alien neighbor who wanted to cook him lunch and study his reactions. It was strange, but it was also the most interesting thing that had happened to him in months. Marcus returned to his work with new energy, and when he caught himself looking forward to tomorrow's lunch, he told himself it was just because the food was good. It had nothing to do with the curious alien with silver blue skin and 4 graceful arms. 3 weeks passed, and Vela's lunch deliveries became the highlight of Marcus's day. Every afternoon at exactly 12 o'clock, she would knock on his door with a new dish. Each meal was different, each one more delicious than the last. At first, their conversations were short and formal. Vela would hand him the food, ask a few questions about texture and flavor, make her notes, and leave. But slowly, their talks grew longer. Marcus started inviting her inside to sit while he ate, and she started accepting. "I do not understand this dish," Vela said one day, watching Marcus eat a grilled cheese sandwich he had made for himself as a snack between her lunches. "The nutritional value is minimal. The preparation is extremely simple. Yet you consumed it with obvious emotional satisfaction. Why?" Marcus swallowed his bite and thought about how to explain. "My grandmother used to make these for me when I was a kid. Every time I visited her house, she would make grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup. So when I eat this, I think about her." "You eat food to remember dead relatives?" Vela asked with clear confusion in her voice. "Not exactly," Marcus said. "I eat it because it makes me feel good. It reminds me of being loved, of being safe, of being home. We call it comfort food." Vela's 4 hands all moved at once, 2 taking notes, while the other 2 gestured in what Marcus had learned was a Kethari sign of deep thought. "You consume suboptimal nutrition because of emotional associations. Food serves as a trigger for memory and feeling." "Pretty much, yeah." "This is extraordinary," Vela said, and Marcus heard something new in her voice, something almost like wonder. Cathari eat for fuel. We calculate exactly what our bodies need and consume precisely that amount. The idea of eating for comfort or memory is completely alien to us. Marcus grinned at her word choice. Alien. Good one. Vela looked at him blankly. I do not understand what was humorous about my statement. Never mind, Marcus laughed. The point is, food means different things to different species, I guess. For humans, food is love. It is how we show care for each other. Vela went very still. Her purple eyes focused on Marcus with an intensity that made him slightly nervous. Food is love, she repeated slowly. When one human prepares food for another, it is an expression of affection? It can be, yeah. Not always, but often. My mom always said the best food is made with love as an ingredient. Vela did not respond. She simply stared at Marcus for a long moment, then stood up abruptly. I must return to my research, she said quickly. Tomorrow I will bring a new sample. She left before Marcus could say goodbye, and he sat there wondering if he had said something wrong. Over the next few days, Vela's behavior changed. Her questions became more personal. She asked about Marcus's childhood, his family, his relationships. She wanted to know about human friendships and how they formed. She seemed particularly interested in the concept of just hanging out. You spend time with other humans doing nothing productive? She asked one afternoon. All the time, Marcus said. That is what friends do. We watch movies together, eat meals together, talk about nothing important. It is not about being productive. It is about enjoying each other's company. Vela's lower hands twisted together in what Marcus had come to recognize as anxiety. Cathari do not have friends in the way you describe. We have colleagues and research partners. We have family members we are genetically obligated to interact with. But the concept of choosing to spend time with someone simply because we enjoy their presence is unusual. That sounds lonely, Marcus said softly. Vela looked down at her hands. I had not considered it that way before. But since arriving on Earth and observing human social bonds, I have begun to feel something I do not have words for. A sense of lacking. A desire for connection that serves no practical purpose. Marcus reached out and gently touched one of her hands. Vela flinched at the contact, and Marcus quickly pulled back. Sorry, he said. Humans touch each other a lot. I should have asked first. No, Vela said, and her voice sounded strange. It was not unpleasant. It was simply unexpected. Cathari do not engage in casual physical contact. Well, humans do. Hugs, handshakes, pats on the back. It is how we show that we care about each other. Vela looked at her hand where Marcus had touched her. Another way humans express love through physical action. Your species is remarkably tactile. That night, after Marcus had gone to sleep, Vela sat in her apartment, surrounded by her research notes. She had pages and pages of data about human behavior. But something was wrong. Her observations had become less scientific and more personal. She found herself looking forward to her daily lunches with Marcus, not because they provided data, but because she enjoyed his company. She pulled up a communication channel and contacted her eldest sister back on Kethar Prime. Her sister's face appeared on the screen, looking tired and slightly annoyed at the late hour. Vela, this is unexpected. Is there an emergency? No emergency, Vela said. I have a question. When you decided to bond with your partner, how did you know? What was the indication that he was the correct choice? Her sister's expression shifted from annoyed to curious. Why do you ask such a question? You have never shown interest in bonding before. I am simply curious. My research has led me to examine relationship formation across species. Her sister was quiet for a moment. For Cathari, bonding is logical. We analyze compatibility metrics, genetic fitness, career alignment. But Vela, the question you are asking is not how to analyze a bond. You are asking how to know when you feel one. Vela did not respond. Her sister leaned closer to the screen. You've met a human, have you not? That is not relevant to my question. It is entirely relevant. Vela, humans bond differently than we do. They form attachments quickly and intensely. They love with their whole beings, not just their minds. If you have allowed yourself to become close to a human, you may find yourself experiencing emotions that are unfamiliar to our kind. I have not allowed anything, Vela protested. I am conducting research. Her sister smiled, and it was not a kind smile. Of course you are, and I am sure your research subject means nothing to you personally. After the call ended, Vela sat in the dark for a long time. She looked at her notes and saw what she had written earlier that day. Subject Marcus shared food from his own plate without being asked. He offered me a bite of his comfort food, despite knowing its deep personal significance. Implications require further study. Heart rate elevated during interaction. Possible contamination of objectivity. She closed her notes and pressed her hands against her eyes. Something was happening to her. Something she did not understand and could not control. And she was beginning to fear that her sister was right. This had stopped being research a long time ago. Marcus received a message from Vela that made him pause his work. Instead of her usual formal announcement about the day's meal, she had written something different. She wanted him to come to her apartment. She wanted to cook together. He knocked on her door at noon, and when she opened it, he saw her kitchen for the first time. It was like a laboratory and a restaurant had merged into one space. Strange devices lined the counters, and containers of ingredients were organized with perfect precision. Everything was labeled. Everything was in its place. "Welcome," Vela said, stepping aside to let him enter. "I wish to understand the human process of cooking, not just the human experience of eating. You mentioned that your grandmother taught you recipes. I would like you to teach me one." Marcus felt a warm feeling spread through his chest. "You want me to teach you how to cook human food? I believe this will provide valuable insights into human food culture." Marcus looked around her perfect kitchen and smiled. "Okay, but I should warn you, I am not a professional chef. I make mistakes." "Mistakes are part of any learning process," Vela said. "I will observe and document your errors as well as your successes." "Great," Marcus laughed. "No pressure then." He decided to teach her his grandmother's recipe for mapo tofu. It was a dish that required several steps, had bold flavors, and was special to him. He explained the ingredients as he gathered them from her supplies, which seemed to include every spice known to the galaxy. As they began cooking, Marcus realized that Vela approached the task very differently than he did. She measured everything precisely. She consulted her device for exact temperatures and timing. She moved through her kitchen like a scientist performing an experiment. Marcus, on the other hand, was chaotic. He tasted as he went, adjusting flavors by instinct. He forgot to turn on the fan above the stove and filled the kitchen with fragrant smoke. At one point, he accidentally knocked a container of chili flakes off the counter, and red powder scattered across the floor. "I am so sorry," he said, bending down to clean up the mess. "I told you I make mistakes." But when he looked up, he saw something strange on Vela's face. Her lips had curved upwards slightly, and her eyes seemed brighter than usual. "You are smiling," Marcus said with surprise. Vela quickly composed her expression. "I am not. Cathari do not smile." "You definitely were. I saw it." Vela turned away to hide her face. Perhaps there was a small involuntary muscle movement. It is not significant. Marcus grinned and returned to cooking. A few minutes later he burned the garlic. The smell filled the kitchen, sharp and bitter. In most situations, this would be a disaster. But Marcus just laughed and scraped the pan clean. "We start again," he announced. "No harm done." Vela stared at him with two of her hands frozen mid-motion. You made an error that ruined part of the dish, and you are laughing? Why are you not upset? Because it is just garlic, Marcus said. Mistakes happen. Getting upset will not unburn it. Better to laugh, start over, and do better next time. But the time wasted, the resources lost. Vela, it is a few cents worth of garlic and 2 minutes of time. The meal is not ruined, and I learned to pay more attention. Where is the loss? Vela seemed genuinely troubled by his attitude. In Kethari culture, errors are sources of shame. We do not discuss our failures openly. We certainly do not laugh about them. Marcus added fresh garlic to the pan, watching it more carefully this time. That sounds exhausting. Humans make mistakes all the time. We burn food, we trip over things, we say the wrong words. If we were ashamed of every error, we would never have the courage to try anything new. As the Mapo tofu came together, Marcus began to hum along with music playing softly from his phone. He swayed slightly as he stirred, his body moving to the rhythm without conscious thought. When he turned to grab a spoon, he caught Vela watching him with an expression he had never seen before. "What?" he asked. "You move while you cook," she said quietly. "You make sounds of pleasure. You treat this task like it brings you joy." "It does bring me joy. I am making my grandmother's recipe with my friend. What could be better than that?" "Friend," Vela repeated the word slowly. "You consider me a friend?" Marcus stopped stirring and looked at her directly. "Of course I do. We have lunch together every day. We talk for hours. You know more about my childhood than most humans I have met. What would you call that, if not friendship?" Vela did not answer. She simply stared at him with her large purple eyes, and Marcus saw something shifting behind them, something deep and uncertain. The Mapo tofu was finally complete. Marcus served it in 2 bowls, and they sat together at Vela's small table. He watched nervously as she took her first bite, wondering if a Kethari would appreciate the bold, spicy flavors. Vela chewed slowly, her expression thoughtful. The flavors are intense. There are layers of heat and sweetness, and something deeper that I cannot identify. "That is the fermented black beans," Marcus said. "They add a kind of earthy richness." "No," Vela said softly. "The flavor I cannot identify is not from the ingredients. I believe it is what your mother described as love as an ingredient." Marcus felt his face grow warm. "That is just an expression." "Is it?" Vela asked, and her voice had changed. It was softer now, less formal. "Or is it possible that the care and attention a human puts into cooking genuinely affects the final result?" They ate in comfortable silence for a while. When they finished, Vela stood and began cleaning the kitchen with her typical efficiency. Marcus helped, and they worked side by side, their movements naturally coordinating. "May I ask you a question?" Vela said suddenly. "Of course. Why do humans cook together when it is more efficient to cook alone? Your presence created additional variables and complications. The task would have been faster and cleaner without you." Marcus dried a pot and set it aside. "Because it is not about the food, Vela. It is about the company. Cooking alone fills your stomach. Cooking together fills your heart." Vela stopped moving. All 4 of her hands went still, and she turned to face Marcus with an intensity that made his breath catch. "Fills your heart," she whispered. "You say these things so easily. Do you understand what they mean to someone who has never experienced them?" "Maybe not," Marcus admitted. "But I would like to help you understand, if you will let me." Vela looked at him for a long moment. Then she reached out with one of her hands and gently touched his arm. Her skin was cool and smooth, and where she touched him, Marcus felt electricity run through his body. "I would like that very much," she said. That night, Vela sat alone in her apartment, surrounded by research that suddenly seemed meaningless. The Cathari Scientific Council had long theorized that humans formed bonds with irrational speed and intensity. They considered this a flaw, a weakness in human psychology. But Vela was beginning to understand something different. It was a gift. A beautiful and terrifying gift that she had never known she was missing until a clumsy human burned garlic in her kitchen and laughed about it. She was in trouble. She knew that now. And she had no idea what to do about it. The lunch deliveries stopped. Marcus waited at his door at noon on the first day, but Vela did not come. He assumed she was busy and tried not to worry. On the second day, he knocked on her door, but she did not answer. By the third day, he was sending her messages that went unanswered. Something was wrong. Marcus could not focus on his work. He found himself checking his phone constantly, hoping for a message that never came. He walked past her door multiple times a day, listening for sounds of movement inside. The silence drove him crazy. On the fourth day, he knocked on her door for the 10th time. "Vela, please, I just want to know if you are okay. You do not have to talk to me if you don't want to. Just let me know you are safe." For a moment, there was only silence. Then Marcus heard soft footsteps approaching the door. It opened a crack, and Vela's face appeared in the gap. Her normally luminous silver-blue skin had gone dull and gray. Her eyes, usually bright with curiosity, seemed tired and empty. All four of her arms were wrapped around herself, as if she was trying to hold herself together. "Vela," Marcus gasped. "What happened? Are you sick?" "I am not sick," she said, and her voice was flat. "I am experiencing an emotional crisis. I would prefer to be alone." "An emotional crisis? Then you definitely should not be alone. Please let me in. Let me help." Vela hesitated. For a moment, Marcus thought she would close the door in his face. But then she stepped back and allowed him to enter. Her apartment was a mess. For someone who kept everything perfectly organized, the chaos was shocking. Notes and research materials covered every surface. Empty food containers were stacked on the counter. The lights were dim, and the air felt heavy with exhaustion. "What is going on?" Marcus asked gently. "Talk to me. Whatever it is, we can figure it out together." Vela moved to her couch and collapsed onto it. She looked small and fragile, in a way Marcus had never seen before. He sat beside her, careful not to touch her unless she wanted him to. "I must confess something," Vela said finally, "and when I have confessed, you will understand why I have been avoiding you." "Whatever it is, I'm here. I'm listening." Vela took a deep breath. "Cathari do not date. We do not engage in romantic courtship the way humans do. When a Cathari chooses a potential mate, they engage in a ritual of compatibility demonstration. They provide for the other person over an extended period. They share meals, share time, share knowledge. They prove through actions that they can meet the other person's needs." Marcus felt his heart begin to beat faster. "Okay," Vela continued, her voice breaking slightly. "Cooking for you every day, spending hours in your company, learning about your life and sharing details of mine. By Cathari standards, this is not research. This is courtship. I have been proposing a bond to you in slow motion without even realizing what I was doing." Marcus stared at her. "You have been proposing marriage to me?" "Yes." Vela covered her face with all four hands. "And I have done it without your knowledge or consent. I have deceived you, Marcus. I told you and told myself that this was research, but it was always more than that. I wanted to understand human emotions, but somewhere along the way, I began to feel them. I became lonely when you were not there. I felt joy when you laughed. I thought about you constantly." She lowered her hands and looked at him with eyes full of pain. "I have compromised my research. I have compromised my objectivity. I have compromised myself. And worst of all, I have taken advantage of your trust." "Vela," Marcus said softly. "You were kind to me when I arrived," she continued. not letting him speak. "You ate my food without question. You invited me into your home. You called me a friend when I did not even understand what the word meant. And I repaid your kindness by using you as a test subject for my own confusing feelings." Tears began to fall from her eyes. Marcus had not known Kethari could cry, but now silver streaks ran down her cheeks. "I am ashamed," she whispered. "I am so ashamed." Marcus reached out slowly and took two of her hands in his. Vela flinched but did not pull away. "Can I tell you something?" he asked. "I do not deserve your gentleness." "That is not for you to decide." Marcus squeezed her hands. "Vela, why do you think I kept eating your cooking?" She looked at him with confusion. "Because you enjoyed the food? The food was amazing, yes. But that is not why I kept showing up at my door every day at noon. That is not why I invited you inside to sit with me. That is not why I taught you my grandmother's recipe." "I do not understand." Marcus smiled at her. "Humans know what it means when someone cooks for them. We know what it means when someone spends time with us, learns about us, cares whether we are happy. You thought you were studying me, but I was studying you right back. And what I saw was someone beautiful and brilliant and lonely, who was reaching out for connection in the only way she knew how." Vela's eyes went wide. "You knew? You knew what I was doing?" "Maybe not consciously at first, but somewhere deep down I understood. And I let it happen because I wanted it to happen. Why? Because I like you, Vela. Not as a research subject, not as a curious alien neighbor. I like you because you are kind and thoughtful, and absolutely terrible at hiding your feelings. I like you because you tried to smile that day in the kitchen and then denied it. I like you because you asked me about friendship and actually wanted to understand." Marcus lifted one of her hands and pressed it against his chest. "Feel that? My heart is racing right now. Do you know why?" "I do not. Because I am about to tell you that I have feelings for you, and I have no idea how you are going to respond." Vela's hand pressed harder against his chest, feeling his heartbeat. Her own breathing had become unsteady. "You have feelings for me, even after I confessed to deceiving you?" "You did not deceive me. You confused yourself. There is a difference. And yes, I have feelings for you. Strong feelings. The kind of feelings that made me knock on your door every day for a week because I was terrified something had happened to you." "Marcus," Vela whispered his name like a prayer. "I know we are different. I know this is complicated. But I also know that the happiest I have been in years has been sitting in my apartment, eating your food, and listening to you ask strange questions about human behavior. I do not want that to end. I want more of it. I want all of it." Vela was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, she leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his. Her skin was cool and smooth, and Marcus felt himself relax at the contact. "I do not know how to do this," she said. "I do not know how to have feelings. I do not know how to be in a relationship. Everything I am experiencing is new and terrifying." "That is okay," Marcus said. "I will teach you the same way you taught me about Kethari nutrition. We will figure it out together." "Together," Vela repeated. "I like that word." They stayed there for a long time, foreheads touching, hands intertwined. The mess of the apartment surrounded them, but neither of them cared. Something had broken open between them, and something new was growing in its place. It was messy and uncertain and absolutely wonderful. Just like humans. 2 months had passed since the confession, and everything was different. Vela still cooked for Marcus, but now they ate together every day, sometimes at his apartment, sometimes at hers. They held hands when they walked through the city. They talked late into the night about everything and nothing. They were building something beautiful together. But Vela had become obsessed with a new research project. "I do not understand human proposals," she announced one morning, her 4 hands flying over her computer. There is no standard procedure, no universal protocol. Some humans kneel, some do not. Some use rings, some use other objects. Some propose in crowded public spaces, while others prefer privacy. How does anyone know the correct method? Marcus laughed from his spot on her couch. There is no correct method. That is kind of the point. Such an important moment in a relationship should have clear guidelines. But every relationship is different. Every couple is different. The proposal should reflect who they are, not follow some universal script. Vela turned to face him with frustration in her eyes. Then how does a person know what to do? If there are no rules, how do they avoid making mistakes? Marcus stood and walked over to her. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. They do not avoid mistakes. They just make sure the important part gets through. The important part is asking and meaning it. Just asking. It cannot be that simple. It is exactly that simple. Vela, a proposal is not about perfection. It is about one person looking at another and saying, I want to spend my life with you. Will you let me? Everything else is decoration. Vela was quiet for a moment. Then she turned in his arms to face him. You say these things so easily. Do you know how brave you are? Brave? I'm just telling the truth. And that is what makes you brave. Humans share their feelings without knowing if they will be returned. They risk rejection constantly. They put their hearts in the hands of others and hope not to be hurt. That kind of courage is extraordinary. Marcus smiled and pressed a kiss to her forehead. I think you might be a little biased. I am absolutely biased, but that does not make me wrong. Over the next few days, Vela continued her research. She watched videos of human proposals. She read articles about traditions from different cultures. She made notes and charts and comparison tables. And through it all, a plan formed in her mind. She would propose to Marcus. The idea terrified her. In Cathari culture, bonding was initiated by the one with higher social standing. As a researcher from a prestigious family, that should be her. But Cathari proposals were cold affairs, formal declarations of intent followed by contract negotiations. That was not what she wanted. She wanted to do it the human way. She wanted it to be messy and emotional and imperfect. She wanted Marcus to know that she had learned what love meant, and that she chose him with her whole heart. The question was how. In the end, she decided to do what felt most true to their relationship. She would cook for him one more time. But this time, she would make his grandmother's mapo tofu, the dish he had taught her all those months ago. She had been practicing in secret, perfecting the recipe until it was exactly right. Food had brought them together, and food would carry her proposal. Marcus arrived at her apartment on a Tuesday evening, not suspecting anything unusual. When he walked in, the smell of spices filled the air, and his eyes went wide. Is that mapo tofu? He asked. I thought you said Cathari do not repeat dishes. This is a special occasion, Vela said. Her voice was steady, but all 4 of her hands were shaking. Please sit. Marcus sat at the small table, watching her with curiosity. Vela served the dish with trembling hands, then sat across from him. She watched as he took his first bite, and when he closed his eyes with pleasure, she felt her courage grow. This is perfect, Marcus said. Vela, this is exactly like my grandmother used to make. How did you do this? I practiced, she said. Many times. I wanted it to be right. But why? Not that I am complaining, but what is the occasion? Vela took a deep breath. This was it. This was the moment. Marcus Chen, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen without interrupting. Can you do that? Marcus set down his chopsticks, his expression becoming serious. Of course. Vela stood from her chair and moved around the table to stand before him. She took 2 of his hands in 2 of hers, while her other hands pressed against her own chest, where her heart was racing. When I first arrived on Earth, I thought I knew what I was looking for. I wanted data, observations, research that would advance my career. I did not expect to find anything personal. I certainly did not expect to find love. Vela, Marcus whispered. You said you would not interrupt. Vela smiled despite her nervousness. For Cathari, love is a clinical term. It describes a biological and social bond that serves practical purposes. But the human word for love, the one you taught me, it means so much more than that. It means choosing someone not because they are optimal, but because you cannot imagine your life without them. It means wanting their happiness as much as your own. It means cooking their grandmother's recipes until your hands ache because you want them to know they are treasured. Tears began to fall down Vela's silver-blue cheeks. I love you, Marcus. I love your kindness and your laughter and your strange human optimism. I love that you burned garlic and laughed about it. I love that you shared your food with me before you knew my name. I love every single thing about you, even the parts I do not understand yet. She sank to her knees before him, her hand still holding his. I researched human proposals, and I learned that there is no correct way to do this. So I am just going to ask, and mean it, exactly like you said. Vela, Marcus breathed, and now there were tears in his eyes too. Marcus Chen, will you form a permanent bond with me? Will you let me cook for you every day for the rest of our lives? Will you teach me more recipes and more human words, and more ways to love? Will you be my partner, my friend, my family? Marcus pulled her up from her knees and wrapped his arms around her. Yes, he said, and his voice was thick with emotion. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. They held each other for a long time, crying and laughing and trembling with joy. 1 week later, Vela arranged a video call so Marcus could meet her family. His mother appeared on the screen first, her face warm and welcoming. Vela had prepared a presentation about Cathari bonding customs, but Marcus's mother interrupted before she could begin. Sweetheart, do you love my son? Vela looked at Marcus, who stood beside her holding her hand. She thought about everything they had shared, every meal, every conversation, every moment of learning to be human together. Yes, she said, I love him very much. Marcus's mother smiled. Then welcome to the family. And send me that tofu recipe. 3 months later, Vela's thesis was rejected by the Cathari Science Council. The review committee noted excessive emotional bias and failure to maintain objective distance from research subjects. Vela did not mind. She rewrote the thesis and published it under a different title. It was not called Nutritional Bonding Practices Among Humans, a Field Study anymore. Instead, she named it How to Feed a Human, a Love Story. It became a bestseller on 12 different worlds. And every night, Marcus Chen came home to an apartment that smelled of spices and love, where his alien wife waited with a new dish and an old smile. And he knew with absolute certainty that he was the luckiest human in the galaxy. Some people searched the stars looking for meaning. Marcus had found his across the hall.